In today's powerful story, one unexpected hero rises from scorn to triumph, exposing decades of injustice in the aviation world. Comment below where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and ring the bell to support the channel. Laughter rippled across the private hangar as an old, beat-up pickup truck rumbled onto the exclusive tarmac of Greenridge International Airport. Inside the VIP terminal, sharp-suited executives paused their conversations to gawk. Through spotless glass windows, their eyes locked on the unlikely figure stepping out of the truck. No one expected this. The man was Jamal Rivers, 38 years old, black, and clearly no stranger to hard labor. His hands, calloused and scarred, looked more suited for a roadside repair shop than the elite airstrip of one of the nation's top aerospace companies. He dropped the tailgate, pulled out a heavy, worn-down toolbox, and walked toward a gleaming Gulfstream 10900, a $65 million aircraft parked in urgent need of repair. "Is this who they sent to fix Ms. Carter's jet?" scoffed Graham Whitaker, director of operations for Carter Dynamics. His voice oozed skepticism. "I thought we requested the best technician in the region, not someone who looks like he stumbled off a back alley garage." Jamal heard it. Of course he did, but he didn't flinch. He'd heard worse, faced more. What these suits couldn't know, was that those dirty hands had saved more luxury aircraft in 15 years than every mechanic on that tarmac combined. He held national awards for aerospace maintenance, and a reputation for fixing problems others couldn't even diagnose. Still, in this world, his face said more to people than his resume ever could. A runway supervisor, clearly uncomfortable, stepped forward, keeping a cautious distance. "Mr. Rivers, the jet needs to be airborne within 2 hours. Our techs couldn't isolate the issue. If you can't fix it fast, we'll have to bring in the Atlanta team." Jamal simply nodded and approached the Gulfstream. It shimmered under the morning sun, flawless in appearance. But Jamal had learned long ago, appearances lie. Inside the terminal, dozens of eyes were on him, doubting, judging, mocking. And then, one pair stood out. They weren't laughing, they weren't judging, they were watching, sharp and focused. "Let him work." A woman's voice cut through the air like a blade. All heads turned. Walking across the tarmac in a tailored navy blue suit was Naomi Carter, 43. CEO of Carter Dynamics and owner of the jet. Her heels clicked on the pavement with precision, and her presence was electric. She didn't glance at the others. She walked straight up to Jamal. "How much time do you need?" she asked. Jamal met her gaze. "Calm, steady. Depends on what's wrong, ma'am." Naomi looked at her watch. A timepiece easily worth more than his truck. "1 hour. That's all you get," she said. "Impress me." Without another word, she turned and headed back toward the terminal, her long coat billowing behind her. The suits scurried after her, whispering in disbelief. Left alone, Jamal popped open the main access panel beneath the fuselage. Immediately, he saw it. The problem was serious, catastrophic. Even a complete failure in the pressurization system. Any attempt at takeoff in this condition would have caused rapid depressurization at altitude. At 45,000 feet, that meant certain death. The prior technicians had misdiagnosed it as a minor electrical glitch. That mistake would have cost lives. Jamal got to work. His fingers, fast and exact, moved like they were guided by instinct. Tools clicked, valves turned, panels opened and resealed. Sweat trickled down his brow. But his focus never wavered. Inside the terminal, Naomi Carter never stopped watching. Not once. Her expression was unreadable, not disdain, not pity, something else, recognition. 30 minutes later, Jamal stood, wiped his hands on a stained cloth, and closed the last panel. The job was done. Silently, he packed his tools. For someone like him, perfection was the expectation, never something worth applause. But this time, something was different. Naomi stepped out again. Alone, she walked directly to him, ignoring the questioning looks from her staff. "How long would it have taken them to spot the real issue?" she asked. Jamal didn't hesitate. They wouldn't have. That plane would have gone down before anyone figured it out. Silence. The kind that weighs heavy in the air. Naomi studied him, her eyes narrowing with thought. "Come with me." Jamal blinked, surprised. So were the executives peeking from the windows. Graham Whitaker looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. His eyes followed the two of them as Naomi led Jamal toward the main building. A low buzz of speculation erupted behind them. This wasn't just about a jet anymore. What no one on that tarmac could have imagined was that the man they had dismissed as a second-rate mechanic had once designed the very pressurization system installed in half of Carter Dynamics' fleet, a system that had brought the company millions. And someone else had taken credit for it. Naomi's office, nestled deep in a restricted wing of the terminal, exuded luxury. The glass desk, the leather chairs, the soft hum of air purifiers, every detail screamed power. She motioned for Jamal to sit. "What's your full name?" she asked. Eyes fixed on him. "Jamal Rivers." She typed quickly into her tablet, then paused. "Jr." she muttered. "The initials on all our original G9 designs." Jamal said nothing, but the tension in his fingers gave him away. She looked up. 3 patents, 4 national awards, masters in aerospace engineering, and yet, you're out here fixing jets? He didn't blink. No one's hiring a black engineer from Southside Chicago to lead aerospace innovation. And mechanics still need to pay bills. "Ms. Carter." Naomi pulled a folder from her drawer. Inside, signed documents, design blueprints, all under the name of another man, Graham Whitaker. "You know how much this system has made us in the last 5 years?" she asked. Leafing through the pages. "Roughly $430 million. Jamal replied without missing a beat. 23% fuel savings. 30% drop in maintenance costs. She blinked, surprised. "Graham's been promoted 3 times. She said quietly. "Took home a $2.5 million bonus last year. And I kept fixing jets." Jamal replied flatly. A sharp knock interrupted them. Graham burst in, his expression barely masking panic. "Naomi, the board's on the line. We need to." He froze when he saw Jamal. "What's he doing here?" "We're discussing intellectual property," Naomi said calmly. "Specifically, the G9 system." Graham went pale. What could he possibly add to that discussion? Naomi tapped her screen. "Turns out, the initials, Jr., on the original blueprints don't stand for you, Graham. They belong to Mr. Rivers, who worked in our development team 5 years ago." The room felt suddenly colder. Graham Whitaker's smug veneer was cracking, his eyes flicking from Naomi to Jamal like a man watching his carefully built world begin to collapse. "You're making a mistake," he said quickly, stepping closer. "This man has no business in here. He's just the person who designed the G9 system that's kept our jets safer, faster, and more profitable than any of our competitors." Naomi finished, her voice cool and sharp. "Sit down, Graham." Graham didn't move. Naomi turned her tablet toward him. On the screen were time-stamped design drafts, internal emails, and patent submission records, all bearing the same hidden fingerprint. Jr. Not Jonathan Reynolds. Not John Rowe, the company's longtime assumptions, but Jamal Rivers. "You manipulated the chain of documentation," Naomi said. "You used your managerial access to replace Jamal's name on the IP filings and buried his employee record by falsely marking him as a temporary contractor." That's ridiculous," Graham stammered. "You really believe him?" Naomi raised an eyebrow. "I believe facts. And here's one more. HR records show that after Jamal left, you suddenly received a confidential performance bonus, just weeks after the G9 went into production." Jamal stayed quiet. This wasn't his fight anymore. Not really. He'd already lost years of recognition, opportunities, and self-worth to this system. But seeing Graham squirm, it felt like justice. Finally catching up, Naomi stood. "I'm placing you on immediate administrative leave," she said to Graham. "Legal and compliance will be in touch." "This is insane," Graham spat. "He's just a..." "Say it," Jamal said softly, for the first time looking Graham dead in the eye. "Go ahead." Graham's mouth clamped shut, not because he was sorry, but because he knew Naomi was still watching. Security arrived moments later to escort him out. The last thing he said before disappearing through the glass doors was, "You'll regret this." Naomi exhaled deeply and sat back down. "You okay?" she asked Jamal. He gave a slow nod. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," she said, Because I built this company to stand for innovation and integrity. We lost sight of that. People like Graham, we let them speak for us. That ends now." There was a beat of silence before she added, "You didn't just fix my jet today. Jamal, you saved my company." He glanced at the window. The Gulfstream 10900 gleamed under the sky. "I don't need a speech. Ms. Carter," he said, "I didn't come here for revenge." "I know," she replied, "which is exactly why you deserve more than an apology." She opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Inside was a reinstatement of his patent rights, a retroactive royalty agreement, and a new offer, head of engineering innovation at Carter Dynamics. With full executive benefits, a staff of 20, and one directive: build the future. Jamal stared at it, speechless. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "Why me?" Naomi smiled faintly. "Because the next generation of engineers doesn't just need to see someone who's brilliant. They need to see someone who looks like them doing it." The newly christened Carter Dynamics Innovation Hub sat just a few blocks from Jamal's old neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. It gleamed not with chrome and glass but with purpose: classrooms, labs, and even a scholarship program bearing Jamal's name. Inside, high school students ran simulations on miniature jets, guided by real engineers, half of them hired by Jamal himself. Diversity, once a PR buzzword, was now embedded in the company's DNA. In the main auditorium, Naomi took the stage to announce the company's newest initiative, the Rivers Project, a carbon-neutral, AI-assisted aircraft system designed by Jamal and his growing team. But he wasn't there. Backstage, Jamal stood in a quiet hallway with his mother, who clutched his arm, her eyes misty with pride. "You remember what they said back in high school?" she asked. "Yeah," he said, grinning. "That kids like me end up in jail or dead by 25. She looked up at him. "I always knew better." Just then, Naomi peeked around the corner. "You ready?" Jamal nodded, straightened his collar, and stepped into the light, not as a fixer of broken jets, but as the man helping build the future of flight. And this time, everyone knew his name. The conference room was packed. Executives, investors, engineers, all buzzing with anticipation. The Rivers Project prototype had exceeded expectations in both performance and sustainability. The company's stock had surged. News outlets hailed Carter Dynamics as a new leader in green aviation. At the center of it all stood Jamal Rivers, dressed sharply in a custom-tailored navy suit, no longer mistaken for a janitor or technician. He stood at the head of the table, flanked by Naomi Carter, who now referred to him publicly as the man rewriting our legacy. But success always draws heat. "Let me be clear," said Martin Kellerman, a senior board member, voice sharp with skepticism. "You want us to phase out all legacy systems in favor of the Rivers AI model within 18 months? That's billions in retrofitting." "Yes," Jamal said calmly, "because waiting will cost us more in the long run. Our competitors are already reverse engineering hydrogen hybrids. If we don't lead, we'll follow, or worse, we'll fade." Another board member chimed in. "This system you're pushing, it's radical. It hands over too much autonomy to AI. Some of us think you're rushing it." Jamal didn't blink. He'd anticipated this. He tapped his tablet, projecting flight test data across the screen. Smoother fuel efficiency, fewer emissions, fewer mechanical errors. Then, he looked up. "What you're calling radical, I call reality. I've worked on the inside of this industry and the outside. I've seen how innovation gets choked by fear. That ends here." Naomi leaned forward, her voice cool but commanding. "Martin, the board approved Rivers' role as head of innovation for a reason. If he says this is the move, we back it." The room fell silent. Martin sat back, clearly displeased, but he said nothing more. After the meeting, Naomi caught up to Jamal in the hallway. "You were impressive," she said. "Even I felt like clapping." Jamal smirked. "You only hired me so you'd look good in front of Forbes." She laughed, guilty. Then her tone shifted, more serious. "They're going to keep pushing back. You know." "I know," Jamal said. "They're scared, and fear wears 1,000 suits." The last person Jamal expected to see at the Innovation Hub was Graham Whitaker. He looked different now, older, less polished, no tailored suit, no assistants trailing behind him. Just a man holding a folder and a whole lot of unfinished business. I'm not here to make trouble, Graham said. I just wanted to talk. Jamal crossed his arms. You have 5 minutes. Graham exhaled. I was wrong. I won't pretend otherwise. I saw what you built. And I realized I was part of the system that keeps people like you from ever getting credit. I can't undo that. No, Jamal said, voice level. You can't. But, Graham continued, holding out the folder. I've been consulting, quietly, digging into safety failures that haven't made it into the news yet. There's a defect in one of the older G9 variants, one you didn't touch, that could cause serious malfunctions at high altitudes. Jamal took the folder and flipped through it. His eyes narrowed. This could cause decompression at altitude. Yes, Graham said, and Carter Dynamics still has at least 30 planes with that variant in operation. Naomi doesn't know. Jamal shut the folder. Why are you telling me this? Graham looked away. Because the old me would have buried it to protect my reputation. The new me just wants to do one right thing. Jamal stared at him for a long moment. Go home, Graham. I'll handle it from here. That night, Jamal called an emergency meeting with Naomi. She sat in stunned silence as he laid out the defect report. We need to ground those aircraft, Jamal said. Immediately, Naomi sighed, running a hand through her hair. The press will eat us alive. But if this is real, it is real, Jamal said, and we don't bury truth, not anymore. She nodded slowly. Okay, then let's do it. I'll handle the board. They issued a voluntary grounding of the affected fleet. Social media exploded, news anchors speculated, stock dipped temporarily, but within days, a powerful wave of public support surged in. Carter Dynamics was praised for transparency and safety. The brand became a case study in how to handle crises with integrity. Other aerospace companies followed their lead. And Jamal? His reputation grew from the man who built the Rivers project to the man who changed aviation ethics. Months later, at the grand launch of the Rivers 1, the world's first eye-guided, hydrogen-powered private jet, Jamal stood on stage as Naomi gave a short speech. He was once called a mechanic with a wrench and no pedigree, she said to thunderous applause. Now, he's the architect of our future. Jamal took the mic. I was once told to stay in my lane, he said, looking out over the crowd of engineers, students, and media. Well, I did, and I built a highway. The crowd rose in a standing ovation as the hangar doors opened and Rivers 1 rolled onto the runway. Ready for its maiden voyage, Jamal spotted a group of kids from the Innovation Hub, faces lit with awe. And in that moment, he didn't see a plane. He saw a possibility. The world noticed. After the launch of Rivers 1, countries lined up for licensing agreements. Airlines and governments sent delegations. Environmentalists called it a miracle in motion. Within 3 months, Carter Dynamics had more global influence than at any point in its history. But with growth came temptation. Naomi Carter sat across from a new visitor, General Emile Sorrentino, defense minister of a European superpower. He was composed, smiling, but everything about him radiated control. We'd like to explore a military application for the Rivers AI system, he said, folding his hands. Not weapons, just tactical deployment, drones, surveillance, navigation, strictly defense. Jamal, who had walked in late, froze. No, he said instantly. That's not what we built it for. General Sorrentino's smile didn't falter. And yet, it would be foolish not to consider how it could protect lives. Protecting lives always starts that way, Jamal said. Then it turns into control, exploitation, collateral damage. I've seen what happens when tech is stripped of ethics. Naomi stayed quiet, weighing the tension between power and principle. She had built her company by balancing innovation and business. But now, she was staring at a line she hadn't expected to face. We appreciate the offer, General, she said carefully, but Carter Dynamics isn't interested in military contracts. Our tech won't be weaponized. The general rose smoothly, smile dimming. Pity. That kind of idealism rarely survives the real world. As he left, Naomi glanced at Jamal. Was I right? He shook his head slowly. You were brave. Late one night, Jamal's assistant rushed into his office. You need to see this. she said, handing him a tablet. A leak had gone viral. An anonymous whistleblower posted internal documents showing that an international subcontractor, Skyreach Systems, a Carter Dynamics supplier, had quietly sold early versions of Rivers-based algorithms to a defense agency 2 years ago. The posts were everywhere. Headlines screamed, "Has Carter Dynamics already gone military? Rivers Project. Innovation or espionage?" Naomi stormed into the office minutes later. "How the hell did this happen?" she snapped. Jamal's voice was low but steady. "They stole it before we ever locked it down. Skyreach reverse engineered a beta version from our open prototype work. We trusted them. We were naive." Naomi sat down, stunned. "What do? We expose it ourselves," Jamal said. "Full audit, full transparency. If we don't tell the truth, someone else will, and they won't care about the cost." Naomi nodded. "Okay, let's clean house." The next 48 hours were brutal. Carter Dynamics held a global press conference. Jamal stood front and center, taking responsibility, even though the leak predated his leadership. "We failed to protect our own creation," he said. "That's on us. But let me be clear. We will not allow the Rivers system to become a weapon. We are rewriting our contracts, revoking access, and cutting ties with any entity that violates our core values." It was bold, risky, and costly. Dozens of lucrative international deals collapsed. Stock took a hit. Investors pulled back. But something else happened, too. A wave of engineers, ethicists, and tech developers around the world began aligning with Carter Dynamics. A new movement formed, Tech for Peace, dedicated to ensuring emerging technologies would be used for global benefit, not domination. Jamal was invited to speak at the UN. He shared the full story, not just the innovation, but the mistakes, the reckoning, the red line they chose not to cross. One evening, months later, Jamal returned to the Carter Innovation Hub on the south side of Chicago. The community tech center was alive with energy, young girls assembling flight simulations, teens coding navigation software, and one boy, barely 10, sketching a futuristic plane on a tablet. Jamal knelt beside him. "That's a cool design. What do you call it?" The boy grinned. "The Rivers 10. It's gonna be the fastest jet ever." Jamal smiled. "Think you'll build it one day?" "I know I will." Naomi stepped beside Jamal, watching the future unfold. "You ever think we'd get here?" she asked quietly. "No," he said, "but I always hoped we'd earn it." They looked out at the next generation, kids who no longer saw themselves as outsiders, but as inventors, as leaders, as proof that legacy isn't about power. It's about what, and who, you lift along the way. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Tellinight. At Tellinight, stories remind us that healing begins with hope, and even the gentlest kindness can rewrite a destiny. Don't forget to tap the bell so you never miss a story that could brighten your day, or transform your perspective. Until our next story, keep your heart open and your spirit brave.